Howdy, everybody. Let's see here. Just checking in on a Friday. Hopefully, you're all doing well. I'm still setting up a couple of things here, making sure that the are correct. They're not. Okay. Yeah, that works. All right. So this is the live premiere of a new series that I'm going to be doing. I mean, it's covering Doug stuff, which I've done before. But the point was to kind of like condense it into a series, kind of like what I'm doing with Darth Dawkins. And I figured with episode 1 of this one, why not do it live? This is kind of fresh. There's a few things that I've been wanting to talk about, some of the antics of our favorite, Arizona scamp. And mostly what kind of caught my interest over the last week has been worsening relations between him and Nathan of Digital Gnosis, but that gets into some internet gossip kind of stuff. But there's actually some really interesting stuff going on there, at least in terms of watching kind of the evolution of two YouTube creators, Nathan and PineCreek. But anyway, one of the things that I noticed is that now, PineCreek was he was less busy around about the time of the election or just after, but now he's been doing quite a bit, and he's done a few live streams, and he did this one, and I've been trying to catch up, and I rarely ever make it through an entire video of one of his live hangouts, and I usually don't have any attention to it. I kind of scrub through, but I usually watch like the first 20 minutes or so to kind of see what his topics are, and then usually right up until he takes a phone call, and that's if the phone call conversation isn't great, then I'll dip out. But this one's kind of interesting. So if you haven't seen it yet, this one is the freeze frame on this one and the title of the video. He basically does like a review of Destiny's time on Jubilee, doing one of those speed runs through. I don't know, it's like speed chess, but for debaters. It's kind of weird. And so I think the rest of the video is PineCreek wondering how he would stack up if he were in one of the Trump voters' shoes going against Destiny. So maybe wishful thinking. Maybe he's looking to get a shot at talking to Destiny, which I thought Destiny was in the process of getting canceled. I mean, I'm probably wrong. I have no idea what's going on there, but I knew something was up. But actually, what he mentioned a couple of things at the beginning of this, talking about how much he's really enjoying the Trump administration and the things that they're doing. He's really happy about stuff that's happening. And in this particular one, he decides to weigh in on the kind of eyebrow-raising suggestion from President Trump regarding situation in the Middle East between Israel and Gaza. So that's what I'm going to be showing. But first, and hopefully this won't be too long, but I do want to say hi to some people since it's a live show. Bridge of the Divide is here. Good to see you, JL. Brian Stevens is here. Good to see you. And Digital Gnosis is here. Digital Gnosis, I did leave a comment in there for you. If you are not sick of talking about the issue, I would be interested in talking about some of the stuff you covered, because I thought you brought up some really good points about some like psychological trajectories YouTube creators can take generally. Obviously, you're talking about PineCreek specifically in those, but I thought some of the points you made were pretty good. And if you'd want to have that discussion, I'd be interested in setting that up. Zach is here. Good to see you. Kent Hoven, CPA. Good to see you. I hope you're staying warm. I think your part of the country is almost as cold as mine. Apparently, Candace Owens is a trans woman. According to who? Is this something that right wingers are doing now? Holy Spackle is on here. Good here. Good to see you. Let's see. Stephanie Holmes Pine Nuts has put on some weight. Yeah, just a little bit. My kind of crappy AI image for this was an attempt to get like a merging of Rush Limbaugh and Doug from Nickelodeon, and that's what it kind of came up with. So took a little a little nudging. Kept wanting to put him in a suit, and I was like, no, I need him in kind of dumpy golf clothes, and that's what it got. So Titan is here. Good to see you, Titan. Okay. Viv Hernando's here. I don't think I've seen you in a while. It's good to see you. Stan 2112. New phone, who dis? It's a bit late for me. Oh no, I mean I wouldn't want to do it. Not tonight. We don't have to do it tonight. I'm thinking scheduling later. I'll try to hit you up on over on your Discord channel. So thank you, Pragmatic Crystal. Good to see you, and thanks for the reminder to everybody. Fabio is here. Good to see you, Fabio. Hope it's not too late for you either. I get the impression Fabio might be a bit of a night owl, so he's probably okay. Thank you for those links. And the TikTok link, especially for as long as it's going to be good. Yeah, that's fine. And good to hear. Yeah, I'll hit you up and we'll decide on a good time. Thanks, Nathan. Wraith Knight is here. Good to see you. Math Pig, long time no see. Yeah, put some clothes on. Yeah, barbarian. Arizona scamp wouldn't be the epithet I'd choose. Lord Red Fang is here. What Doug do now? Well, I mean, he spoke his mind as well as he could, and I'm here to sort that out. Well, but basically for myself, and then whoever wants to watch me like sound it out. Let's see. He's in full-on MAGA kind of fascist. Non-workers don't have worth. Yeah, and he's kind of been like that. I mean, I knew there were things like that. He would have conversations like even a few years ago about like self-reliance, the importance of self-reliance, and a lot of that stuff I knew was code. I mean, I'm like I was conservative, and yeah, I would use those same terms too. And it usually meant like self-reliance is like, look, as far as public policy goes, I don't want to have to come up with a government policy to take care of any aspect of your life financially. That's essentially what it means. And it's fine for, I think, most Republicans to do that because they're normally incredibly bad at administration. They're very good at playing like paperwork games and being obstructionists in bureaucracy, which I think kind of also just reinforces their opinion that all administration and all bureaucracy is inherently bad. They use it that way. And so, it really steams them if they try to do something with like something that's really popular and also bureaucratic, like say Social Security. That just drives them nuts. If you set up the right kind of program the right way, they can talk bad about it as much as they want, but if you take it away from the group that is benefiting, they'll pay the price at the polls. Bree is here. Good to see you, Bree. I missed it, but I want to see the show that you did on ley lines. I was kind of interested in that. I've always been, I have known what those were, and then kind of got fascinated with them. It's just like a conspiracy thing. I think those are truly strange. Let's see. Coco's is here. Good to see you as well. All right. Okay, I think I've got everybody here except for Sandals. Once you realize you don't have to sleep anymore, your mind goes wide open. Yeah, mine turns into a mess. It's like a county fair on meth. Has Pine Creek gone full Elon apologist too? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised, but let's in this one he doesn't. Yeah, I don't think it comes up. So, all right. Without further ado, good to see you all. Thank you for joining me live for this one. Most of these ones going forward as I do them, they're going to be kind of like the Darth Dawkins ones. I'll probably record short snippets of them and release them as a pre-recorded episode. But I reserve. I'm going to be reserving a few to do live premieres in both series as things come up. There's a live that I'm going to be doing about Darth Dawkins with the Tom Rabbit video that dropped because that one is hilarious. And Darth is just extra out of his mind with that one. And actually the Taco had released one. And so those ones, I'll either break them up into smaller pre-recorded ones or do like a long weekend live one, which I haven't done in a while. So, but I still got Darth stuff to cover. And I'm thinking every once in a while, if there's a particularly egregious short that Pine Creek does that gives me enough to kind of work with, even if it's just like a 10-minute video, 5-minute video, those would be my episodes for him. So that's it. I didn't tag, Skylar and I probably won't get into discussion about this one, but I did start listening to Skylar's discussion with Doug, which was at the end of the one where he was talking with Nathan. So yeah, at some point I imagine we'll be talking about that. So let's see here. Okay. So here we go. So just to set up the context again. So Doug is getting ready to show this video. He's going to start going through it, but that's not what it's about. He's basically been talking about stuff in the news, and the thing that he's really interested in at this point, he was talking about Elon actually a little bit. He was talking about like ending the furloughing workers at USAID and stuff like that. But now he's going to start talking about Donald Trump's decision, his idea about what the United States should do in the Middle East. So we'll turn it on here. Let's make sure the volume's turned up. And again, if you can't hear this, yell at me. It should be coming through okay. Let's get started. Let me shrink myself here. Okay. Well, that really doesn't make much of a difference, does it? That's kind of weird. It's just going to be right in front of him. Yeah, okay. We'll do that.
Then the recent news, by the way, we're going to do this Destiny thing, but the recent news on Trump suggesting that the Palestinians move to places like Jordan and Egypt and that the United States take over Gaza. I've been brewing over that for the last couple of days, and I've come to the conclusion it's a good idea. We're not talking about starting a new war or anything like that.
I just want to prep that. I don't want to belabor this too much, but I just want to prime you on this. He said he's been brewing over this announcement for the last few days, and he's concluded that it's a good idea. Now he's going to lay out why he thinks it is. Kind of.
There's two ways to explain this to someone who leans left. There's the you speak their language way, and then you just bluntly tell the truth way.
Okay, so keep in mind here, we've already got a massive problem with what he's trying to do. As if the issue here, okay, so Trump's position on this, just to go over it, was what popped up in the news was that, hey, you know what we're going to do? Maybe we just need to clear Gaza out. That was essentially what his position was on it. Let me see here if I can get some of them quotes up. Yeah, I'm just finding now the aides are trying to back it. Ugh. So essentially the idea is that what we can do is it's just not working out. So what we'll do is I think, he thinks they need to get those people out of there. All the Palestinians, just remove them from that territory. And then we'll take an ownership. We as in the United States, which, okay, that's interesting that how we're just going to take over territory that belonged to one sovereign nation because another sovereign nation decided that a reaction that should have been a law enforcement action, they turned into a bombing campaign, as if, and then painted the picture that this was some existential conflict of survival between two peer nations, Palestine versus Israel. And it's not. It's Israel blowing up a part of Palestine, the Gaza Strip, which is an occupied territory that the Israeli military controls access to. If you want in and out of the Gaza Strip, you go through military checkpoints controlled by Israel. And so rather than treating the situation like, okay, we're going to go in there, we're going to find the Hamas people that were responsible for the October 6th massacre of civilians. No, they just decided to bomb a lot. And the justification for that is that they can do it because they're Israeli and the Palestinians are all Hamas, even kids, I guess. So despite your feelings about how this goes one way or the other, whether or not Israel has a right to defend itself, yada, 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 we're just going to try to take a look at the real politic of this versus what Doug is trying to say. After many days of letting the idea brew and reaching the conclusion that it's a good idea, now what he's going to do is say, well, there's a way that you can describe to leftists why this is a good idea. One, you can use their language, and two, you can be bluntly honest. What I find interesting is that he didn't feel it necessary to come up with a way to explain this to right-wing voters or to centrists, who also might have a very difficult time wrapping their head around this particular plan from Donald Trump. It's not even a plan. Let's face it, it's a concept of a plan, like a lot of his plans. And like a lot of his concepts, they're bad. They're batshit crazy. They're probably like pill-addled, result of like, a lack of sleep and a lack of reading. So lack of understanding about the situation. So let's see what he's got to talk about. So he's already starting from a very, very bad place. Okay, this has to be explained to leftists in a way, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to give you two different versions of this, how to talk these people into this. And by leftists, what he means are the namby-pamby tree huggers that just, they don't want to be involved in any kind of conflict. Never mind that there's plenty of people that have absolutely no problem being involved in armed conflict who didn't have enough forehead to slap repeatedly when they heard Donald Trump burp this crazy idea out. So here we go.
So which way? I'm going to speak their language way.
He's not, but yeah, spoiler.
Try to convince the left-leaners, the woke progressives, the Democrats, why this might be a
What about the Republicans that think this is terrible?
good way, using their language. Okay, ready, Myron? Begin scene. The death, the destruction in the last couple of years have been horrendous.
Couple years.
It pains me to see this. In fact, it goes back decades, almost 100 years.
The death of whom, Doug? By whom?
Of this cycle of death and destruction.
Of whom? Predominantly. Doug's a numbers guy, so I expect him to maybe pay attention to the statistics on the death of whom.
At this point, I don't even care about who's to blame. I just want the death to stop.
Okay. So you don't care about which one's to blame. All right, fine. Okay, let's see how far this gets us.
I want the pain and agony to stop. And how do we do that? Like, Israel's not going away, just like the trans people are not going away.
Okay, that's a weird shift. What could you do? Well, who thinks that the solution to it involves Israel or Israeli people going away? Although this will get kind of interesting here because he's got a little bit of a twist on this, and it doesn't really make any sense. Like, as far as most people are concerned with this issue, the problem isn't that one side needs to go away. The problem is that not, basically both sides are actively kind of screwing with each other, but both sides are different. The one side is Hamas, a terrorist organization, not Palestine. There's no parity here. So that has to be checked automatically, and Doug does not get that. This is not Palestine versus Israel. It's Israel versus Hamas. And keep in mind, if you're not aware of this, that Palestine is split geographically anyway. There's the Gaza Strip, which again, access to is largely controlled, almost exclusively controlled by the Israeli military. And then there's the West Bank. And in the West Bank and those territories, that is controlled by the Palestinian Authority. Hamas more or less controls everything in Gaza, but that's because they had a vote at one point, and the people that run Gaza, I think Hamas won the largest, they won by a third, the largest third in it, back in 2005 or 2009. I think it was 2005. It's been a long, it's been a generation since they've actually done any voting. So I guess that's justification right there. So this is already completely going to break down, right? But here's what Doug's going to try to finish with.
How do we fix this? I just want the pain to stop. Maybe it's time we try something different and new. maybe we should make an offer, the global community, because we should not act unilaterally. The global community should maybe say to the...
Let's talk about skims. I used to layer pieces for more support. I had to cut them up to get the right look.
Don't make me order.
The
Don't
Jews
make
of
me get
Israel.
YouTube Premium again. Good God.
We will no longer give you any military funding unless you move to the state of Arizona in the United States. We'll give you, it's your choice.
So in this hypothetical explanation, he's trying to say this is the one that he would say to if it were Jews. Now, Doug's, despite the fact that he brood over this for several days, it didn't seem to matter that, like, if he was going to communicate this, like, what if you'd say this, like, and you're actually, instead of talking about the Palestinians, you're talking about the Israelis. Like, we're not going to give you military support anymore. We're going to move you to Arizona.
You stay, but now no more help from us. Or you move to the United States, far, far away from the Palestinians and the Gaza Strip. I don't view this as ethnic cleansing.
Cool.
I view this as a way to make peace and to stop the killing.
It would be ethnic cleansing, right? So we'll put a pin in that.
Now, let's reverse it. I propose an ultimatum, a choice, but it's a binary choice, to the Palestinian people. You can move to places like Jordan or Egypt,
How?
or you can stay and you receive no money from us to rebuild. You're on your...
I don't know that the United States spends a lot of money on aiding Palestine, outside of maybe funneling money through certain international aid groups. I just don't know that happens. We spend an enormous amount of money making sure that Israel has a disproportionately powerful military compared to any of its peers in the region. So again, this is one of those things where, like what he's trying to say is like, well, you know what? If you want to stay there, you're not getting any help from us. Well, we're not. I don't know if Doug's been paying attention to the news or even paid attention to the results of the election, but a lot of people voted against Harris and were prepared to vote against Joe Biden because of what he was doing in that part of the world. He was helping Netanyahu's administration. So this doesn't really make like, oh, they're going to be on their own. They already are on their own for the most part. That kind of explains the death toll, don't you think?
Your own. It's your choice. We'll provide money to give you great places in places like Jordan, Egypt. Or you can...
How would we do that? That is one of the proposals, right? So what Donald Trump said was, well, here's what we do. We just, every last man, woman, and child in the area, we get them out of there, and we put some of them in Jordan and some of them in Egypt, and maybe tuck a few in some other places, and then that's it. And then we'll take over that land from them, and it'll be a place where the world's people hang out. Those were his words. The world's people can live there. Obviously, Palestinians are not going to be allowed to live there, so I guess they're not considered the world's people because they wouldn't be allowed back. They had to be relocated out in order to appease Israel, which is quite balmy. So, okay, what did we just do? So we have an ally in the region that took a disproportionately violent step, an act of ethnic cleansing / genocide, depending on who you're looking at and how you're valuing, and they are two different things. In response to a terrorist attack carried out by Hamas, and Israel's reaction was to the entire population of Gaza, the Gaza Strip, and there's new attacks, increasing attacks happening in the West Bank. So this clearly isn't just about Hamas for them. So you're going to reward that level of brutality from an ally by providing the ethnic cleansing that they want. And you're going to use this kind of language like, well, I just don't want any more people to die. How are you going to stop people from fighting against forced relocation from their home country? How are you going to stop people who are psychologically, politically, morally, ethically aligned with the plight of Palestinian people, and then become radicalized and start to ally themselves with the aims of Hamas, and then decide to pitch in and fight for them too, so that they can maintain what territory they still have. How do you prevent that from happening? Oh, we just get rid of all of them. We put them in Jordan and Egypt, and then everything, that's it. We ride off into the sunset. Nothing ever happens from there. Okay, what he's talking about, what Trump is talking about, is cultural erasure, and it is ethnic cleansing. You're removing all the people who are responsible for the culture out of a geographical area, and then you're just putting in something that you prefer. It's ethnic cleansing. Saying that it's not, with the patronizing, smarmy tone of voice, it's not really ethnic cleansing because we mean well. It's still ethnic cleansing. So it's interesting that he thinks that he can actually sell ethnic cleansing to leftists as if leftists aren't better versed in this kind of stuff, or even just sort of cultural liberals who hate this kind of military overreach. Like, they're not going to be able to correct somebody like Doug from the jump. He's going to pull the wool over their eyes talking like this, trying to like, shush, 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 calm down. Like, this is good for them. They won't die this way. Yeah, that's because you're providing the ally that is seeking ethnic cleansing with the ethnic cleansing they wanted. Good job, Doug. This is why he could never be like a diplomat or anything. He would just get beat. I'm surprised he plays. Well, poker's easy, but yeah, you would never. I don't think he could handle this kind of stuff in, like, actual international relations. This is too hard for him.
You can stay where you are, and you're on your own. I don't view this as ethnic cleansing. I view this as giving the people...
It doesn't matter what you view it as. It matters what it is. And I think Doug in other videos would actually say that. The definition of ethnic cleansing is the deliberate removal of a specific ethnic, religious, or cultural group from a given territory, usually through forced displacement. Even if you promise them, like, ooh, you're going to get nice houses in Jordan, you might get a nice condo in Egypt. First of all, how are you going to secure the fact that you're going to relocate hundreds of thousands, millions of people into two countries as refugees and make sure, and then what? Are you going to provide all the necessary funding for them to handle it, or do they just take on that burden on their own? America decides that Jordan and Egypt get a refugee crisis by fiat, by declaration. Donald Trump wants it. That's what's happening. Donald Trump has decided that the Gaza Strip specifically must be ethnically cleansed. Okay, so what do you do about the occupied territories where, the government of Israel has been encouraging and actively remunerating people, rewarding people financially, encouraging them to move in occupied territory in direct defiance and violation of the Geneva Convention? What's going to happen there? Things tip off and things go crazy, and then I guess Palestinians are the ones that have got to go. They're the most aggressive ones, right? It was all them. Yeah. Dude comes off as sincere as a fortune cookie. Yeah, he really does. Nitty, insane. Stan. Okay, this guy is gross now. This is will Palestinians want to talk about skims? No, I have a feeling it probably violates a few things in their culture and some of their religious practices.
People choice to improve
Not to say that it's a religious monolith over there, but yeah, I don't think so.
their lives. Just like we did with the Jews. No military funding, no support unless you move to Arizona. No rebuilding of the Gaza, no help from us unless you move to Egypt. Not ethnic cleansing in either way.
It's ethnic cleansing if you remove the entire group from their homeland. Yeah, it is. I think that Doug has problems with statements, with phrases like ethnic cleansing and genocide, because one, he doesn't understand the definitions or the nuance between ethnic cleansing and genocide. And also, and by the way, the difference is genocide would be the intentional destruction of a particular national, ethnic, racial, or religious group in whole or in part. Ethnic cleansing would be the one where you're not necessarily wiping them out, but you are getting rid of them. You're removing them from that place, removing a huge chunk of their national identity. You're taking that culture and forcibly removing it from that area and then re-engineering it for yourself. You know, it's the same thing that the United States did with First Nations people, which, hold that thought, he'll be bringing up as justification later on. Yeah. Why did Reagan leave the Middle East there? Yeah.
Giving them a choice. Let's try something new. How has it been working the last 100 years?
Let's try something new. Ethnic cleansing is not new for the United States, so I don't know what's wrong with Doug.
It hasn't. Okay, so that's the nice.
Okay, so in either case, here's one thing that the United States could do very, very easily just from its own position. It could stop funding the Israeli military. When the Israeli military decides, instead of engaging in a paramilitary effort to track down and capture the Hamas members that orchestrated the October 6th attacks, cool. You know, maybe we'll be involved. You know, good luck. Go get them. Don't kill civilians while you're doing it. If you take our weapons that we donated to you, or weapons that we specifically bought for you or made for you or gave you money to purchase from somewhere else, and drop those bombs on schools and hospitals, then you don't get any anymore. Simple as that. That seems a little bit more realistic. And that doesn't involve you doing the heavy lifting of helping Israel remove their part of the population they have an issue with into Jordan and Egypt, a deal that you could not possibly guarantee. There's no way Egypt and Jordan are going to go for that. I mean, they might, but the amount of spending that you would have to offer Jordan and Egypt, you might as well remove Elon Musk from Doge right now. Because any attempt to try to cut $2 trillion out of federal spending and then pull this plan off, you're not doing that on the cheap. You can't Donald Rumsfeld your way into getting two Middle Eastern countries that don't have the greatest relationship with us into thinking that they can handle on their own financially a massive refugee crisis just because our current president, who is insane, said so. So now Doug is going to go on to step 2. Step 2 is going to be the tough talk. Here we go.
Nice way. That's the sweet, soft way to talk to someone on the left about this issue. You probably still saw a tinge of sarcasm in me. It was pretty,
just a tinge.
Good what I did there with the Jews moving to Arizona is similar to.
It's not, because that's not even remotely. The Jews moving to Arizona, that actually implies they're going from one actual border territory to another. If you're talking about the Palestinians, they're going from occupied land that they really don't have any control over because it's an apartheid state administered by the Israeli military. And now they're going to be picked up and divided and thrown into two countries and converted into Jordanians and Egyptians, respectively. How is that the equivalent of picking them up? Like, it's interesting what he's saying here. Why not just take them all in? Why not just say, all right, you know what? Israel's not working out. England screwed up. Never should have done this project. And the reason they did it was because they were motivated by an enormous amount of anti-Semitism. So why doesn't the United States just absorb Israel? Instead of spending money on weapons over there and spending money on stuff, like, why not just bring them over here? Give them Arizona. It's not very nice anyway. Sorry. I would give them Nevada. Or Arkansas.
To the Palestinians moving to Egypt, right? But here's the hard way.
Again, not really equivalent and really dumb.
This is the tough,
they'd never
go conservative Republican way to explain this to a left-leaning person. Israel won. They're superior in military. They beat the crap out of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip.
Beat the crap does not exactly do it any justice. And they weren't supposed to actually be beating the crap out of the Palestinians, Doug. They were supposed to be going after Hamas. Point 1. Point 2. This was not Palestine at war formally with Israel. This was Israel going after Hamas in retaliation for a terrorist strike. But they decided that what they needed to do, and Doug has bought into quite a bit of the propaganda that they put on. The propaganda coming from the Israeli military has been really effective, I think, in U.S. circles, and that there are a lot of people just sort of laboring under this idea that what was going on is an issue of parity. This is one country versus another. They are not even remotely close in terms of political parity, in terms of military strength, not even close. They're not even the same status. And he's trying to say, like, well, here's the reason why you back them. They beat the crap out of them, and they're stronger, and might makes right. Okay. Might makes right. Remember that.
What war is for is to kill people, destroy things, and take over land. And they
A war of conquest, I would agree with you. Was that what Israel was supposed to be doing? Were they supposed to be taking over Gaza? No. The reaction against October 6th was supposed to be a retaliation against the terrorists who initiated that attack. It was not a war of conquest declared against Palestine proper by Israel. Doug is absolutely high on his own farts here.
accomplished that. So quit your boo-hoo whining.
Boo-hoo whining. How many tens of thousands of people have died just from bomb strikes? But stop your boo-hoo. See, this is the problem with Doug. He's once heard people, he's once seen a hippie or two, maybe once or twice seen a hippie shout the phrase ethnic cleansing and suffused that phrase with emotional passion or rage or righteous indignation. And because that happened, and because Doug has the emotional processing bandwidth of a honey badger, he's incapable of really dealing with that other than just reacting. So someone is upset, old Doug here gets upset back. And when somebody uses that term, the self-defense mechanism goes up. And that person must be using that term as a pejorative or a slur or a way of somehow expressing, vicariously their rage and frustration out onto other people, blaming, not taking responsibility for themselves, instead of actually being able to identify. Just because a person is caught up in their feelings, enraged, passionate, in tears, unrighteously or righteously indignant, does not mean that what they're saying about a situation is not 100% accurate. When people got worked up about the ethnic cleansing happening in Israel, they were 100% correct. 100% correct. And what Donald Trump is essentially saying as a matter of statecraft is he's doubling down on the necessity for ethnic cleansing. And Doug is being a cheerleader for that and an apologist for it too. So, Doug has won an excellent place, I think, in history, because this is one of those things. Remember where, just think about where you're going to be. What side of history were you on when it came to this issue? And Doug was on the side of the people who believed that might makes right. He was on the side of the people that were brainwashed into thinking that this was a war of military and political parity between two countries, because he's delusional and ignorant.
Israel's not going away. They probably want to take all that land anyhow.
I got news for you. Just because Donald Trump says he can get rid of everybody that's in Gaza and move them to Jordan and Egypt does not mean that Palestine ceases to exist. That is not how that works. So this tough talk version of Israel's not going anywhere. Well, that's interesting because Israel came about because of imperialistic nation building and nation meddling done by the UK.
Well, who's going to stop them? You? United States?
This is what your ear looks like, filled with wax. Here's a cotton swab. Watch.
Good Lord.
No, there's too many conservative evangelicals who in the United States who support Israel. It's never going to happen. So do you want the killing to stop or not? What's that? Yeah, you do? Well, then maybe it would behoove them, the Palestinians, to move. They lost the war. Oh, what?
They didn't lose they weren't fighting a war technically, Doug.
What's that? You call this ethnic cleansing?
It is.
Okay. Mr. Pious in the Sky American in the United States. Give your land back to the Native Americans in the United States.
Okay, see that? So you can't actually call this out because he's just going to do this appeal to hypocrisy kind of bullshit. This is completely fallacious. Most of us are not in a position where we could do what he's talking about. We didn't take that territory. The nation did a long time ago.
States. Give it back to them. Find out what tribe your land is where you live. Give it back.
For all of those of you who own land, yes, give your land back to a tribe. Give it away. That's not going to work.
Back to them. What? You're not going to do that? Wars have consequences.
Okay, so when the United States at war with the Indians? Were they a monolith and then we won? We beat Indians or Indianistan or what First Nationistan? And then after that, that's the reason why they got divided up and sent to reservations and shit? This man is a fucking moron. Those people were on those lands because of treaties that they negotiated with the U.S. government that the U.S. government routinely violated. That is the reason why they are in the predicament that they are. They never had to be in a formal war. They are the victims of ethnic cleansing. And like, if you're going to use this, keep in mind how this started out. What he wanted to tell people is this is how you explain it to them if you want to speak their language, and this is how you explain it to them as the truth, or you give it to them hard and fast, like Brannigan's love. You just tell them like this is how it works. War has winners and losers, and the losers have to take it up the tailpipe. Like, cool. As soon as you can show me at what point this was ever technically, legally a war and not a fucking massacre. So by this definition, this is how this could work. Mexico and Guatemala could be battling it out forever. And the UK comes in and decides, here's a great idea. Mexico wants Guatemala. We just take all the Guatemalan people and we divide them up and we put half in Canada and the other half in the United States. The UK has spoken. Does he think that's a great idea? This guy can't tolerate footage of people crossing a border at a non-designated checkpoint in the south of this country. But he's actually he's trying to say this would be a good thing for all parties involved if the United States decides that Egypt and Jordan should have automatic, to the tune of multiples, hundreds of thousands of people enter their country at one time. They get a refugee crisis and promises from the United States government, which mean dick all. And that's supposed to fix this issue. On top of the fact that if the Palestinians are going to organize any kind of resistance, guess where they're going to organize those resistances? Those resistance movements will spring up in Jordan and in Egypt. On top of the fact that even talking about doing this is basically just the idea, the planning of moving this many people out of their nation state is practically a war crime anyway, under these justifications. Well, Israel's just going to keep bombing them silly, so we might as well just remove them. That way Israel can, maybe help us build some deluxe property there. This doesn't solve a damn thing. And remember, multiple days brewing over this. This is a good idea. And this is the best he can do to sell this to the lefties. He's not even selling it to other fascists.
The winners get the
Well, you don't even really have to sell this to fascists. Ethnic cleansing is just sort of a bonus.
prize. The Palestinians are the losers. They have no choice. They have no free will. They're done.
The Palestinians don't. So in a military action against a terrorist group that results in the loss of lives of tens of thousands of people, of innocent people, those innocent people have to assume the right of defeat as if war were declared against them when it wasn't. Sweet. Nobody play the game Risk with Doug. He'll burn his house down to beat you.
Basically, I said the exact same thing, but one in a soft way, one in a hard way.
You said might makes right in the second way, and in the first way, you implied that there was nothing you could do against said might. The easiest way to preserve lives was to just move those people out of the way of that might. It was a lot lazier. You didn't say might makes right. You kind of implied that that might couldn't be stopped. It can't be helped. We just can't do anything about it. So the best thing to do is just to get those people out of the way. And the other thing, in the first example, those people, the death needs to stop. Why? Because they're innocent people. They didn't declare a war. Hamas is a terrorist organization that is amongst them. They committed an atrocity. Israel went after them and decided to go after the rest of the Palestinian people along with them, bomb the shit out of them, killing men, women, and children and the elderly, forcing them into starvation, cutting off aid. A war of brutal attrition against the entire civilian population of essentially an open-air prison, controlled and administered by the Israeli military. Those people weren't going anywhere. They're monitored. And this is how the situation needs to be. Okay, so if those people deserve to be moved, that's the question I would ask Doug, because deserve has everything to do with anything. Why do they deserve to get transplanted for their safety if in the second example, the second explanation, they deserve whatever we visit upon them because they're losers? They have no free will. They have no rights anymore. So why offer them an out? These are not remotely equivalent things. Fantastic. Way to fuck up your own example.
Woo, that was even hard and harsh for me.
That's because you're posing. I mean, I hope the knee pads aren't too tight. I want to make sure that he can, still walk after he's, been down there for a while.
What's that, Myron? No, I love Native Americans. Yeah, I love the casinos. I play poker. Yeah. They're capitalists now. Well, maybe they were before too. I don't know.
Yes, there's nothing more capitalist than taking back America's white people's wealth one slot machine coin at a time.
My best friend is a Native American. I can't be racist. Oh, that really gets them upset. Okay.
That's because it's irrelevant and stupid. Doug knows why that upsets people, because it's fucking stupid.
Yeah, so I have an opportunity to debate Destiny coming up in a couple weeks, 3 weeks, 2 weeks. Ooh, it's coming
he
up
does
fast.
have an opportunity,
but probably not going to go because of my work and because
what?
I know the Crucible. Wilson's going. He's a great debater. I really don't feel they need me, but maybe I'll change my mind after watching this.
Okay. All right. So I hadn't seen that far into it, but I'm done with that. Let me just rattle through what's gone wrong with everything that happened here. I just want to give the right evaluation here before we continue. Okay. So I've made some notes here. Okay. So there's a broader outline for the things that are going on. So first of all, what he's doing, he's fundamentally misframing his audience. He's assuming only leftists need this persuasion. He's excluding centrists and conservatives completely from the discussion, except to offer, this is the thing that you would say to leftists. And then the second one seemed to be, this is what you would say as a conservative at leftists, just to wind them up, I guess. It ignores that many conservatives and centrists oppose forced relocation on legal, moral, or strategic grounds. Creates false consensus among conservatives without ever engaging with any of their objections. Oversimplification of the Israel-Palestine conflict. He reduces a century-long geopolitical struggle to a move or suffer ultimatum. Ignores international law, historical agreements, and regional dynamics. Fails to address the moral and practical implications of mass displacement. 3. False equivalence between Israelis and Palestinians. The Arizona comparison oversimplifies the difference between a recognized state, Israel, and an occupied population, the Palestinians. Equating voluntary financial incentives for Israelis with the forced deprivation of Palestinians distorts the ethical stakes. 4. Flawed ethical and policy justification. Claims that forced relocation is not ethnic cleansing, but a choice, despite clear power imbalances. Ignores the legal and humanitarian responsibilities of occupying powers. Assumes that simply removing people will end the conflict rather than addressing the root causes. Again, I'd go back to that. Okay, so now what do? Well, Palestinians in Jordan and Egypt rise up. I bet Jordan and Egypt will love that. And I'm sure the United States will be there to help them fund their resistance to the Palestinians now that you've transplanted that conflict into those two areas. Or maybe what you end up having is Egypt and Jordan saying, okay, you're here, we're going to help you. Nothing could possibly go wrong. Use of mockery and straw man arguments. The straw man arguments were plenty. The soft version caricatures leftist concerns, reducing them to emotionalism. The hard version dismisses moral arguments entirely, adopting a Darwinian might makes right approach. Ignores legitimate criticisms of Israeli policy by framing all opposition as naive or hypocritical. Okay, so let's get into some of the other ones. There's a preemptive audience segmentation that assumes only leftists need persuasion, making his argument weaker and less credible. Mockery over substance. The sarcastic tone in both versions prioritizes performance over logical coherence. Uses loaded language. He's always describing leftists as woke progressives, and those aren't equivalent. False dichotomy. He sets up two ways to communicate his ideas, soft and hard, but ignores the possibility of a reasoned, nonpartisan approach, and forgets the fact that he screwed up the soft and hard approach because they're not equivalent. It's not just the same. One is a soft way of suggesting the same thing. The hard one would be like, well, they can, with the hard one's rhetoric in place, it would actually make it a little bit like, well, hell, by the way you sound, it sounds like, why bother moving them? Why not just let Israel finish, so to speak? There's the logical errors, false equivalence, suggesting that Israelis moving to Arizona is the same as Palestinians moving to Egypt, ignores political, legal, and historical realities. I know he didn't put a lot of thought into it, but it's there. Straw man of opposing views, frames leftist concerns as purely emotional, avoiding engagement with actual policy criticisms. Circular reasoning justifies Israel's action by saying war has consequences while also suggesting the U.S. should intervene in the outcome. An appeal to hypocrisy, the tu quoque fallacy, suggesting that people who oppose forced displacement should give their land back to Native Americans as if that invalidates their position. Begging the question, assumes that relocation is the best way to stop the violence rather than proving how it would work. Factual errors and omissions. It ignores international law. Fails to acknowledge that forced displacement is considered a war crime under the Geneva Conventions. Misrepresents the U.S. role. Suggests the U.S. could cut military aid to Israel as leverage, ignoring that such a policy would face enormous political resistance. Actually, he suggested that in the one, Israel's not going anywhere, and you can't stop funding them because there's too many evangelicals that want to support Israel. So he did actually touch on that, but in his one previous example, like, oh, well, if we actually frame this in a hypothetical, we could reverse the positions of the Israelis and the Palestinians. But then he admits tacitly, no, you can't do that. Distorts Palestinian agency, implies that the Palestinians have a choice to relocate, when in reality, they would be forced out under duress. Exaggerates Israel's position. It suggests that Israel wants to take all the land and that no one will stop them, when in reality, there is internal and external debate about Israeli policies, even in Israel. Just because it is the position of the current Israeli government and the Israeli military that this is a big thing, does not mean that all Israelis want this. So the other problem, too, with this is basically the realpolitik failure that apparently Doug doesn't understand about. If you are unaware, realpolitik is looking at the actual power dynamics that exist rather than coming up with fantasies about what is. If you are engaging in this situation as if Palestine and Israel are near peers, that they have parity in terms of political power, in terms of military strength, you are laboring under a fantasy. And any discussion, any suggestions coming from somebody who does not understand that basic concept, that basic reality in this situation, can be dismissed, really. because you saw how he ended up phrasing the conservative opinion. Well, they lost like they lost a war, like they're the Germans in World War II. Now it's reparations time, and we've got them right where we want them, and we make them agree to X, Y, and Z in terms of conditions. That's not how this happened. So that's pretty much it for that. Pine Creek does not have any clue what he's talking about with this, other than the fact that he converted this issue into an opportunity to attempt to troll and trigger the woke liberal types, the namby-pamby, tree-hugging, bleeding heart liberals that he's caricatured into existence, instead of actually dealing with the actual reality of what's going on here. Forcibly relocating Palestinians from the Gaza Strip is not going to change the dynamic of the resistance that the Palestinian people have about their situation in relation to Israel. It simply won't. It will move it. It will morph it. And if the United States actually did carry this through, it would, one, be committing a war crime by forcibly displacing them, and two, put itself in a position in the crosshairs of anybody in history that wants to look at that. I mean, that is the United States essentially going back or looking back at history, like the forced displacement of First Nations people and the ethnic cleansing used against them, and saying, more please, we need to make America great again. That is a terrible idea. And also, I don't know if Doug's paying attention to this as the finance guy. It's also fucking expensive, enormously fucking expensive to be this kind of a dick. It is always less expensive to be kind. You'd think he'd know that. He just tries to save money by being passive aggressive and a sneak. So with that in place, I will finish this up here. I am going to revisit there's actually a part before this that's about economics. I'll probably be doing that with a friend of mine, talking about some of the comments he's made about the national debt. That will be, for most of you, probably as exciting as watching paint dry. So I might record that and then edit it and put it on later, so people can watch it whenever. Probably won't bother with doing that as a live one, but we'll see. With that being said, thank you to everybody who's been on here. Thank you, Jay, for being on here. And a special shout out to, I forgot, God, I just forgot. I thought I saw him here in the chat. Oh, well, I'll thank you in the comments later, but, I'm telling you, Pine Creek looks like if Quado was the villain. Open your mind. Like, yeah, stop doing that. I will be back with probably another pre-recorded Darth one later in the week, and I'll be covering some more of the goofy content here. If anybody knows an update on this thing with him possibly going toe-to-toe with Destiny, I'm not a huge Destiny fan myself. I don't follow a lot of his stuff. I've seen clips of this Jubilee thing that he did. I would be interested to see that, but I have a feeling that Pine Creek is going to puss out if he watches. I think he's going to discover after watching Destiny, talking to some of these people, like he'll be able to sit there and kind of call me, well, if I were him in that position, I would have said this, or I would have said that. That's very different than having to actually sit there in the seat live and actually have the conversation with him. Yeah, it's a little bit different than Monday morning quarterbacking, and I think Doug is going to discover that his work schedule does not allow him to have this conversation. Given the amount of time that Pine Creek is on the internet, I find that hard to believe. So anyway, thank you all for joining. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff. If you got any recommendations for me, hit me up. Many of you can probably hit me up over on Discord. I'm on there. I don't have a server yet, but I'm thinking about it. Or shoot me an email at jeffersonspatchcock@gmail.com. Have a great night. Have a good weekend. I'm sure I will see some of you around the YouTubes and areas and stuff over the weekend. So take care. Stay warm. Try and stay sane. See you later.